Everything today about your plans, what's going to suit you better. However, there's no pressure today for our meeting. I'd like you to go through the process. However, go with the agent you like and trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm here to add value,
Yeah.
but again, at the same time, if you feel that you can't build that relationship, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
We can work together in the future.
100%.
So that's quite critical.
Yeah.
Second thing you touched on is, of course, the contract. That is so critical because you don't know what things could go wrong. Because I've seen contracts coming in where the buyers could potentially use the loopholes or perhaps the problems in the contract to walk away,
Yeah,
even on the day of the
absolutely.
settlement as well.
110%.
Sometimes
It's a
likely
big
it doesn't
loophole.
happen.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we always hope that it doesn't happen because
Exactly.
it just makes things a bit complicated.
100%.
And the thing we hear about the most is, like you mentioned, the contracts are the most important part.
Correct.
We don't want the deal to ever fall through.
Exactly.
And a lot of clients will say, well, that's why I have a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, being in the conveyancing industry, whether it's a solicitor, a lawyer, or
Correct.
a conveyancer, we do all the same things.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, the conveyancer is limited to the type of legislation we
Yes.
can use to fight, or I shouldn't really say fight, or to rectify the defect or rectify the situation.
Correct.
But we all do the same thing. So
100%.
I think for, if there are any because it
Exactly.
just makes things a bit complicated.
100%.
And the thing we hear about the most is, like you mentioned, the contracts are the most important part.
Correct.
We don't want the deal to ever fall through.
Exactly.
And a lot of clients will say, well, that's why I have a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, being in the conveyancing industry, whether it's a solicitor, a lawyer, or
Correct.
a conveyancer, we do all the same things.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, the conveyancer is limited to the type of legislation we
Yes.
can use to fight, or I shouldn't really say fight, or to rectify the
Yes.
defect or rectify the situation.
Correct.
But we all do the same thing. So
100%.
I think for if there are any sellers out there and they hear, or you got to go see a lawyer. One, you don't really need to.
Correct.
You're going to be paying double the amount of money.
Exactly.
And second thing is that we do the same process.
100%.
Okay, and there could potentially be that some lawyers don't actually just specialise in conveyancing, so they're
Correct.
not updated with a lot of the legislation or the
Yes.
rules and regulations. So either or, it's still exactly the same
Yes.
thing. So that's really, really important. So yeah, like I said, the contract initiation is very important.
Correct.
We then move on to obviously then after the sale signing is done,
Yes.
we receive obviously the contracts.
Yes.
Okay, and obviously it's then our job to review all of the offer deals, so to make sure that the deposit payments are there,
Yes.
the subject to finance, is it unconditional, when is all the settlements due dates and
The
things
dates,
like
yeah,
that.
pretty
That's
critical.
obviously another critical
Yeah.
area as well.
Exactly.
And the good thing about, I guess, I know we're talking about vendors, but for a buyer there is a cooling off period.
Correct.
So it's really important that, and you would know this being
Yes.
an agent, that at the time of getting the offer that both parties are aware
Aware
of
of
exactly
that,
what's
exactly.
going on. That way then we don't have anyone calling off.
I've heard a lot of
Yeah.
stories where I speak to a vendor calls us and say, we'd like to switch agents.
Yeah.
You ask them the question, why?
Yeah.
We had a deal come through, we were never aware that the buyers can pull out or get the deposit back if the finance
Exactly.
doesn't go through.
Yeah,
Our agent never
100%.
told us.
Yeah, exactly.
So making sure that you actually explain this,
Yeah.
what our process is a 3-step process, even at the start of the journey. We meet with the vendors, we sit down and explain the process, how we best assist them or how we're going to best assist them in selling the home. The second step is sitting down and making sure the house is all ready to go, and it's called set to sell. You sit down and you ensure that you explain the whole process to the vendor about the contract of sale. You go through the contract as an agent as well, understand what sort of body corporate, are there 2 body corporates, is it 1 body corporate there? Sometimes there's 2 OCs in a location. You talk about the body corporates, you talk about rates and councils and if there's any caveats on the property and things like that. You have to be aware of these things beforehand. And explaining to a vendor, how does an unconditional offer looks like? How does a subjective finance offer looks like? What to be wary of if
What
someone
could
makes an offer
potentially happen.
subject to
Exactly.
finance, and how are we going to qualify a buyer to understand whether this subjective finance offer would potentially go through as well. So all these things are quite critical. Now,